Hi, how's it going? It's been a while. I wanted to tap in with you and see how everyone's doing. There's been a lot going on, and I've heard more and more people um, coming to some crossroads in their lives, making some difficult choices, feeling like they're getting thrown into some of them against their will. Um, a lot of emotion right now. And then, not to mention on the grander scale, a lot of people have a lot of anger and fear and other emotions going on worldwide. There's just a lot going on, and I don't know, when I pray about it, it's meant to. There's just a lot that needs to happen. If you think of, I don't know, building Lego blocks, or when I was little, we had the Lincoln Logs. And the erector sets and stuff like that. You can make this amazing thing, and then if you wanted to make something else, or you were inspired to make another creation, you had to take it all apart, right? You had to break it down. And I think that's what we're seeing in a lot of ways. And not everyone. I put a meme out today that basically, I can't even quote myself. You have to read it. But it basically says, why is it when we get that pit in our stomach, we always assume it's bad? You know, maybe it's something big on the horizon. However, what makes us interpret things as bad or good are those unconscious, subconscious belief systems that we hold. Whether we're aware of them or not, they still exist because they've been quietly grown throughout the years, okay? And I've gone into a little bit of how that works. That's neuroscience. It's kind of cool. Repetitive. That's why it's important to be careful what information you take in and how you interpret it, because it builds belief systems, which then become the filter in which we're engaging our whole world through. Okay, so if those belief systems aren't serving us and they're making us look at things in a fearful way or in an aggressive way or resistant to change, with the assumption that the change is bad, right? Because with any kind of change, there's some level of grief, because there's a level of letting go in order to move forward with the change. And change, because we haven't experienced it yet, it's easier when we have to some level, but if we've never experienced what is coming, that's the unknown. And that alone can hold fear for some people or create fear. I mean, we're all a little apprehensive or nervous when it's something we're not familiar with, because we don't know how we're going to feel. However, feelings are just there to help us through. It's the beliefs that we've attached to those feelings, attachment, right, that lead us down one path or the other, and how we interpret it and how we move forward. So be mindful of that. Find your patterns. If I'm always thinking it's going to be negative, well, that's a pattern I can change. But I first have to be aware of it, and I have to accept that it exists, so that I can then start working with that energy to move it out of my way, move it out of my system, or create a new perception, one with hope that, yeah, this feels this way. What within me is making me think that, what outside of me too. But it's usually how the outside, the external, reacts or interfaces with the internal that creates certain emotions and other thought processes. It triggers a chain reaction, if you will. So if you find that you struggle more with transition and change, and some people absolutely do, and it's not about fault, okay? But if you find that that's a struggle for you, then you're going to want to work with that more, just for your own growth and satisfaction, so that not every transition is so disruptive for you. Because one thing that's inevitable in life is change. We can have whatever feelings we want around that change, which can then create friction for us and make us feel stuck, make us feel angry, make us feel whatever, but it's not going to stop the flow. It just stops our ability to go with the flow. Does that make sense? Yeah, there are certain things in our life that we can put a stop to. Like if I get accepted, I don't know, say I have a distorted belief system that I'm not intelligent, okay? And there's a lot of people. I worked with someone one time that was their unconscious belief system, was that they weren't smart enough, they weren't good enough. And they got accepted to college. They got a full ride, and they turned it down. And afterwards, they sat with a lot of regret and a lot of shame, and they didn't understand. They didn't understand why. Like, why would I turn that down? But it can't be true, and I won't be able to do it. That's the impact of unconscious belief systems. Whereas the reality of it is if they went and they struggled, there would be resources to tap into to help. They wouldn't have gotten accepted unless they were capable. However, unconscious belief systems, at least the negative ones, because they're not all negative. We have some really good ones too that help us to show up in life. You're still here, which means you're doing something, right? Right? Not everything. None of us do everything right. Not everything we do. I mean, we're fallible human beings. That's just part of our makeup. So that's why it's important to take our L's as well as our W's and adjust, learn from it so that you can move forward in a way that helps you create your best life, not that makes you stagnate and stuck, right? Because stuck doesn't help. And it usually feeds more of those unconscious belief systems of inadequacy and other things like that. So with that being said, pay attention to the patterns. Pay attention to what your body's telling you, how you interpret that, and then how does it actually play out? So was your interpretation correct? Or did it need tweaking? And keep in mind, your brain just wants to be right. It doesn't really care about the facts. You have to consciously bring those to the forefront. And not your interpretation of them, but the actual facts. If I'm walking on a path and there's a rock in the middle of the road, or maybe I'm riding a bike and there's a log down, right? Like a tree fell down and I can't just will the log away. I have to problem solve that. I have to do something with it. But a lot of times that log is illusionary when it's internal. That belief system that I'm not good enough, or that I'm not worthy, or that I'm not intelligent, or whatever it is for you. And there's no shame in any of it, because we all carry something that we either choose to work through or we choose to carry the burden and let it hold us up and keep us from living and creating our best life. You get to choose. And whatever you choose, you have to trust is in alignment with your best and highest good. Because sometimes we haven't learned whatever lesson that we need to from a pattern in our life, or a situation that tends to arise over and over again, right? It comes up for us again because there's still things to learn. So the best thing we can do is, instead of distracting from it or not accepting it, is to actually sit with it and say, what do I need to learn from this so that I can let it go and move forward? Because that's the only direction, that's the only path we actually have as an option. Going backwards, that's not a viable option. All that does is keep us stuck. And then we lose the time that elapses while we're sitting in the past. You choose. Okay? The choices we make today determine the choices we get to make tomorrow. But we only have today. Conscious awareness. Be present. Be intentional. And don't run from yourself. There's a lot to be gained with sitting with yourself. And regardless of the choices you may have made in your life, you still have potential as long as there's air in your lungs to turn things around, to move them forward, to grow, to heal. So whatever heavy energies you may be sitting with, whatever transitions are going on in your life, honor yourself, give yourself love, nurture, and grace. And until I talk to you next, peace out.